Helping Kids Talk. You might be thinking, what a strange title for a training video, when what you really want is how to help kids keep quiet. Hi, I'm Scotty May. I've been working in the area of Christian education as a consultant to churches, especially as it ministers to children, for several years. When I've asked volunteers, what is it that frustrates you about children's ministry, I hear behavioral problems, short attention spans. They're bored with the materials. If that's how you feel, you're not alone, and that's good news. But on the other hand, the most common rules that I encounter are sit still, keep your hands in your lap, and your mouth shut. Ironically, these rules are the kinds of things that actually create problems with children. These rules work against the way God designed a child to learn rather than helping them. Now, studies have shown that as a child becomes more involved in the learning setting, retention of the lesson actually increases. This allows learners even as young as 5 or 6 years of age to process, reflect, and then interact with each other as they understand the lesson better. Then they can apply it to their own lives and they can act on their understanding. As I observe educational settings for children in the church, I notice that little discussion happens. Teachers would ask questions of a group of children, sometimes even large numbers of children. But then only the outgoing children or the smart children who know a lot about the Bible would respond. So it's a question and answer time rather than a discussion. So a few children are involved, but most of them sit passively. I've talked with Sunday school teachers and vacation Bible school teachers who have told me that they don't do discussions very often because that they feel that the children would get off track. Secondly, they feel that the teachers would lose control of the session. And also, discussions take too much time. They can't cover the lesson. So true discussion, a really effective teaching method that aids understanding, rarely happens. So come along with me. Let's have some fun as we visit 4 classroom scenarios that we've interpreted humorously for you, so we can see ways that you can make and break a good discussion.
And because Daniel wouldn't give in, they threw him into the lion's den with huge, massive, hungry, lots of them, starving lions. But God had slammed shut the mouths of the lions and protected Daniel from any harm. Daniel didn't give in. God came through. Let's discuss what this has to do with our topic of fear. All right.
I know.
Fear.
I know.
Don't be afraid because God will protect you.
Whoops. I didn't see a hand there, fella. Let's make sure that we stick to the rules. Okay? Now, anybody else? Great. Now I see a hand. Yes.
Don't be afraid because God will protect you?
Yeah. Killer answer. God will protect him. Great. Any other lessons? Yes, Anna.
I have a friend, and she prays over her food at school, and some people laugh at her.
You mean Katie Crawl.
Yeah.
She's funny looking.
Oh, she's amazing.
She's not.
Time out. Time out. Sammy. Stop. Now look, we are going to have order here. We've got a game plan. Let's stick to it. You, sit up straight. You, stop interjecting. We're having a discussion here. And I don't want any talking. You have something to say? You say it to me. Now, somebody, give me one of God's lessons. Anybody? One of God's lessons? Does any of God's lessons come to mind? Anything. We're talking about fear. Do you think that Daniel was afraid of the lions?
Daniel wasn't afraid. He knew God would save him.
Ooh, you didn't raise your hand?
Neither did you.
Neither of you did.
What?
I raised my hand.
God needs to slam your face, John.
What is going on out there? What has happened to our fundamentals? Discipline, discipline, discipline. Come on, you guys. Get your head in the game. Focus, focus. Oh, we're playing so sloppy. An undisciplined game is a lost game. You hear me? Lost, lost, lost. Sit up straight, feet on the floor, hands by your side. No fear! No fear! Fear. Are you ever afraid? Benny? Hello?
Sorry.
Everybody, sit up. Anna, how about you? Are you ever afraid the other kids are going to make fun of you? Is peer pressure something you struggle with?
Well, I have a friend and she prays over her lunch and some people make fun of her.
We heard about your friend, but I want you to answer the question that I asked. Do you ever struggle with peer pressure? You.
No, not really.
Really? Okay, anybody, anything you're ever afraid of, anything you struggle with? Nothing? Somebody has to have something. Okay, well, we got 5 minutes to go. Sammy, yes.
Can we go now?
Yeah.
No, we will sit here quietly until the time is up. Hey, guys, sit up straight.
Wow, that was amazing, wasn't it? Did you see how their enthusiasm just quit? I don't mean Mr. Rutger didn't love those kids. He did. He was committed to them. But he enforced his rules so much that they didn't want to discuss. He'd never have gotten Anna to say anything more. She had things in her heart that she wanted help with. She wanted to talk about her problem, about this friend of hers that was having trouble. But Mr. Rutger had his question and he wanted to discuss his topic of fear from his perspective. And for Mr. Rutger, the rules became more important than loving the kids. Those children did not feel safe. It really made me chuckle when I heard Mr. Rutger say, "I don't want any talking. If you have anything to say it to me." How can you possibly have a discussion with that environment created? It was almost like he's saying, kids, be quiet, but he wanted them to discuss. I have found it helpful to break children into very small groups, maybe with a partner, or 2 or 3. And that way, every child is able to talk, because quieter children will not talk among 6 or 8 children. And then I will give each of those little partners a discussion question like, when was the time you were really afraid? What did it feel like? What happened? Then I'll have those little small groups report to each other what they talked about. And they won't talk to me, they'll talk to each other. And that really helps the learning go back and forth between the children. I wonder how it would have gone if Mr. Rutger had created a warm, nurturing, accepting environment. Think back to your own childhood. Where was a place where you felt so loved and so accepted that you could talk about whatever you wanted to? Who was that person? What did that person do that made you feel that way? See if you can recreate that kind of a feeling in your space where you work with children. Make every time you're together like a special event, maybe like a Thanksgiving feast or a birthday celebration, so that every child can't wait to get there. Did you notice Mr. Rutger wanted discussion? And he was going to hit his head on the board because he couldn't get the kids to talk. But Anna didn't want to talk because she was afraid of how he'd react. So for Mr. Rutger, controlling the children was utmost in his mind. Now, let's take a look at another scenario with a different style of teacher and see what happens to discussion in that setting.
Then God shut the door of the ark, and the rains came, destroying all the people of the earth. But Noah and his family were saved, because Noah loved God and obeyed him. Okay, now that we've read the story, let's have time for discussion. Come on now, everyone. What has this story taught us about obedience? Anybody? Anybody? What have we learned today, class? O-B-D-N-S. science. Anybody?
Oh,
Yes.
I have Nintendo 64, and I'm better than my dad at it and my best friend, Jason. But he has PlayStation, so we can't really trade games.
Sam, we're talking about something else.
You know, when Noah was a little boy, he didn't have things like a Nintendo.
They didn't even have TVs, Miss Sinclair.
That's right, Anna. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Anna, did you see GoBots yesterday?
I don't watch GoBots. That's a dumb boy show.
No,
GoBots
it's
is
not.
not dumb.
It's not dumb. You are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
It's a bunch of computer animals that turn into giant robots and fight. That's all they do is fight. It's so stupid.
You don't even know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
Anna. She thinks they're animals,
Yeah.
Sammy. They are PETs, parabolic energy transformers.
Yeah.
They're ordinary life forms that have been genetically changed by scientists to help keep the peace, and it can really happen now.
Fine, whatever. Watch it if you like, but girls, don't watch that show.
Because you're stupid.
Uh-huh.
She's stupid.
Well, it
Penny.
sounds like you two know an awful lot about GoBots.
GoBots!
Oh, GoBots. Sorry. Anyway, it doesn't sound like Anna wants to talk about that, so why don't we talk about Noah?
Why don't we talk about something else?
Okay, well, what do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about Nintendo 64. Yeah.
Well, do you two play Nintendo?
Not Anna. She spends half her time zombied out in front of VH1.
Oh, well, what's on that station?
Oh, Spice Girls, Jewel, Jam Master C, Mariah Carey, The Wallflowers. I happen to like that song.
Yes! Oh, those sound like such lovely painters. Come and see how beautifully these colors work together. The reds, the blues, the greens. Oh, they're so beautiful. They're so pleasing to the eye, no?
It looks like Nintendo 64.
Yes, I can see that. Oh, yes, keep talking. Don't limit yourselves.
Looks like a bowl of biscotti on a football field.
Wonderful! Oh, yes! You see how everything is connected. One thing leads to the next. Oh, it's all so beautiful! Now, Anna, tell us, what were you saying?
All the girls were at my place that night. We watched the VH1 Top 40 Countdown and the MTV Music Video Awards. We ate sweet and sour gummy bears and M&Ms till we almost popped.
Oh.
There were at least 15 of us there that night. All I know, it was the best birthday present I ever had.
Sounds like girly kind of fun, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, now, what do GoBots, Nintendo, and VH1, and Anna Slumber Party have to do with the story we just read? Remember? The story about Noah, big ark, animals, two by two? Yes, Benny.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Was that a contrast to Mr. Rutger? Oh, dear Miss Sinclair, she loved those kids. She loved them so much she let them do anything and talk about anything. We have to have rules, but we have to have rules that help learning happen. For Mrs. Sinclair, discussion didn't happen because the children became so disengaged. They were so off target. They were on tangents. Each one had their own agenda, and they were fighting with their agendas. So there was no beneficial discussion. In her freedom to try and be an artist and create a very free-flowing picture, very little, if any, learning took place. There's no way even a great theologian could have connected GoBots and VH1 and Nintendo. It's so important to have children feel accepted, but yet help them focus on what you want them to learn about God. What if she would have said, the rule here when we're discussing and talking together is that we respect each other. We listen to each other and there are no put-downs. That really deteriorated into some name-calling and some kind of ugly stuff that shouldn't happen when we're trying to teach about God. But also, It was not helpful to talk about Nintendo and GoBots and VH1 and all that stuff. Miss Sinclair could have said, I'm so glad you're interested in that. I'm going to talk to you about that in just a little while. But let's think about how obedience affects us today. When is a time it's hard for you to obey? And if she would have come up with questions that intrigued the children, she could have conducted a wonderful discussion. Did you notice at one point Anna kind of took charge of the class? She was actually sitting in the desk. That doesn't help learning. When children are in charge, they don't feel safe. Sometimes we think they do because they like to be bossy, but they really don't. They want to know that we are in charge, even if we facilitate them taking some initiative sometime, but they should not have control. We want them to feel safe so that when they need to, they can become a child and have silly little questions that they might think are stupid, but there is no stupid question. So stay in charge, allowing the children to feel safe. This was such a contrast, this free-flowing artist of Miss Sinclair, letting whatever happen, happen. Now, let's take a visit to our third setting and just see what another style might look like.
So he said, those who tremble with fear can turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 men remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many of you. Bring them down to the spring, and I shall tell you who shall go with you and who shall not. Now, today, we're going to learn how God can use little people to do big things. Now, this is the time allotted for the discussion before we move on. Let's talk about what we read. Benny, why do you think God sent back home all those other soldiers? Anyone else? The question again, why did God send home all those other soldiers? After all, there was only 300 left, hardly a fighting force. Anna.
Well,
Oops. Looks like the time for the discussion on that question is up. The answer is because God did not want Israel to boast that they had saved themselves by their own strength. Let's see what's next.
I was going to say that.
Boy, I hope we can get through all this today. The lineage of Gideon, breakdown of the 12 tribes of Israel, the expanded history of the Midianites and other desert enemies.
Why would God let all those people die?
Just a second. Where are my handouts?
Is God bigger than Superman?
Superman. Did someone mention the Man of Steel?
Yeah.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound? Sammy, have you ever read this book? It deals with the impact of comic icons on the church. Maybe a little esoteric at times, but theologically speaking, on the right track. Let's see what's next. Oh, come on now, big smiley faces, everyone. Sammy, come on, big deep breath. Come on. Back to the text. Now, Gideon married many wives, and he also had a concubine, which we won't get into here, in the place called Shechem. Shemin, Starsky, Solar System, Star Wars, Sky Master, Speciation, Species. Spiral arms, spiral galaxies, star clusters.
How long do you think he can keep this filibuster up?
He's got to be getting tired. He's been going for hours.
I ask that the proud senator stop this filibuster and give up the floor.
No, I will not give up the floor. I still have this text and 8 other phone books to get through. Nucleons, nuclear particles, nuclear reactor, oceans. Ophrah is the location where they buried Gideon. Now, after Gideon died, the Israelites returned to their wicked, wicked ways. Woo! We finished that whole story today. Any questions?
Mr. Hudson, how about my question, the one I asked earlier?
Yes, Anna, that was a very good question.
Thank
Let's
you.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, seems like we just ran out of time. Well, we'll talk about it next week at the end of class if we have time. Thank you all. You've been a very good class.
My goodness, that exhausted me. I don't know how you feel, but he wore me out. That was information overload. Mr. Hudson, he knew his material. But you know what? His purpose was trying to cover the lesson, cover the material. Something all of us need to remember is that we don't teach lessons, we teach children. And I think that's something Mr. Hudson forgot. He forgot about the kids. He forgot about what issues they had, what their needs were. He was driven by his lesson, his wonderfully prepared content. And he wanted to make sure he got it all covered, so he had his timer binging, binging, binging. Oh, what a guy. Did he know his stuff? But he didn't know kids. Those poor kids didn't have a chance to bring their needs and their issues to the situation. Mr. Hudson needs to learn to be comfortable with silence. He needs to learn to ask good discussion questions and then to wait. To wait to give the children time to think. Because thinking takes time. Another helpful thing to know when you're asking a discussion question is to simply come back at the children maybe 6 or 8 times with, what else? What else do you think? What else might have happened? Keep repeating what else, because as children respond, that lets them know, if I think more, there might be more answers, more responses. I could get more ideas about this subject. So keep saying, what else do you think? What else could happen? What else do you know? That also allows children to get rid of what sometimes are smart alecky or funny answers that they want to give you right away. And you just ignore the funniness and the humor and you say, well, what else? What do some of the rest of you think? What else might you want to say? And as we do that more and more, it just really encourages the children to think deeper and deeper, and that brings understanding. That was a very different style, wasn't it? We've seen 3 contrasting styles. Now, let's move on to a 4th style and see what we can learn about discussions, or maybe how not to discuss.
Now that we've learned what the 9 fruits of the Spirit are, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, why don't we discuss how each of these apply to our everyday lives? Benny, which should we start with first?
I don't know. Sharing with friends.
Good one.
Well, now, but is sharing actually a fruit of the Spirit, Benny? No. Why don't we just talk about the first fruit of the Spirit again?
I think it's kindness.
Yeah.
Kindness is good.
No.
Is it being happy?
Yeah, Ben. Good one.
No.
Is it patience?
Good one.
No, Benny, not quite. That's the 4th fruit of the Spirit, but we are looking for the first fruit of the Spirit.
Not fighting?
Oh, yeah.
Not exactly.
Oh, this is too hard.
Goodness, being good.
No.
Being faithful.
Obeying Jesus?
Not telling lies?
Not stealing.
Sharing?
Doing your chores.
Cleaning my room?
Eating our vegetables?
Acting like Jesus.
Sharing?
Caring.
Reading the Bible?
Telling the truth?
Stop.
Anna, what did you say?
The first fruit of the Spirit is caring. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I misheard you. No, that's not the right answer. Close, but it's not right.
Oh, come on, close enough.
Just tell us.
Let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
No, we need to get the right answer. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a clue. When you grow up, you might just fall in.
A hole.
No!
A big well?
No, not a well.
Maybe a ditch.
Love! Can't you see? The first fruit of the Spirit is love. Don't you see that?
Not really.
She sure had enthusiasm. She really wanted those children to learn the right answer. As if the right answer would be on a test that would make them better Christians. As I watched Mrs. Swanson teach, it was like she was a surgeon. She was going for precision, exactness, right answers. Those kids probably felt like they were right on the operating table. But good discussion does not happen with right answers. What we want to do is create discussion questions that help children think about the Bible passage in new ways, that creates new understanding. Did you see how frustrated Mrs. Swanson got? She was so frustrated because those kids were just sitting there, they were saying things, but they weren't giving her what she wanted. Maybe it's because she was asking the wrong questions. What if Mrs. Swanson would have said, which fruit of the Spirit is more important? Well, is there a right answer to that? I don't think so. But if she would say, which one do you think is more important? Why do you think it's more important? Does someone else have another idea? There could have been some very interesting discussion about that. If you're telling a Bible story and you want the children to discuss the Bible story, you might say, what do you think happened the next day? Is there a right answer? No. But the children really have to think about that story. With your questions, help the children think about the aim of the session. What was the best birthday present you ever received? Why was it so special? What made it so wonderful? And that would help your learners be prepared for a lesson on God's gifts. So you see, a discussion question needs to help the learners think. Think about Mrs. Swanson. She loved the kids. She was so eager for them to do it right. She wanted precision, just like that surgeon. Think back to Mr. Hudson. Teach the content, cover the lesson. And then there was Miss Sinclair, just wonderfully letting the children do whatever they wanted, but they probably didn't learn. And then Mr. Rudker. Control, follow the rules. Now, all of those things have their place. But each one of those things cuts off good discussion because it does not allow the children to think so that their understanding is built. Someone has said that the best mirror of the mind is the mouth. If that is true, we must create opportunities for learners to talk and explain what they are thinking. Careful listening then allows us to clear up confusion and misunderstandings should they occur. The psalmist wrote, "Give me understanding, and I will keep your law and obey it with all my heart." Research and education shows that participating in discussion greatly enhances understanding as learners listen to the ideas of their peers and then make relevant contributions themselves. Thanks so much for joining us on this showcase of how not to lead discussions. God bless you as you minister to children and lead them in insightful and beneficial discussion.